We're recording it to the computer. So this meeting will be recorded and shared on Tri-County's website. But while we're getting ready, if you haven't yet had the chance, we're using Poll Everywhere today to engage with our audience. And so you can use either using your computer or your cell phone, answer these poll questions, and it'll get you set up into the system. And we'll have some other questions later on during the programming for everyone to respond to. And if you're having any trouble, please feel free to use the chat box. We'll be looking to it for questions.
I don't know how to use the chat box.
Okay. Do you see a chat feature on your screen? Are you
No,
using a
I'm
phone?
just using a phone. And
Okay.
I'm Christy Mitchell. I have a ticket, but the screen I was in didn't give me my particular ID number.
Oh, okay. You should be able to log in without an ID number.
I did press pound after the, so I'm just waiting. I'm a passenger of City Lift and City Link, and I sit on the ADA committee and the Human Service Transportation Committee.
Well, we are so happy to have you with us today. Since you're on a cell phone, there is no chat feature through the cell phone, so feel free to speak up if you have a question.
I'm not on a cell phone, I'm on a landline.
Oh, you're on a landline, okay. Yeah, definitely from the landline there. You won't be able to use the chat feature. However, we have a voting feature on the screen. Do you have a computer available?
I have Windows 7, which is not usually compatible with Zoom.
Okay, well, we have a poll service, and you can feel free to respond verbally to the poll if you would like. Right now, the screen is showing that says, what is the single most important mobility challenge in the gray area? Also,
and I don't see that question.
Okay, if you would like, I believe the presentation is on Tri-County's website. Hannah, could you just remind us where that's located?
You know, I don't think that I actually have the presentation on the website, but I'm happy to send that over to you right now, Chris.
In an email?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you need to send.
Okay, and then I'll worry about posting it maybe a little bit after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So we are at 6:02, and if everybody is ready to go, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Miller.
Okay. Thanks, Katie. Thank you, everyone, for taking a little bit of time out of your evening to join us. We will try to keep this meeting limited to an hour, but let's make it a very productive hour for our time. My name is Eric Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. We're located in Peoria. We're here to tell you about an important transportation issue that faces our region that we have dubbed the gray area. I know that sounds a little like a Netflix TV series, but as you will learn from our panel, it is a critical issue for us as it relates to mobility in the region, and this is for some of our most vulnerable population. Before we hear from our panel, a few housekeeping items. Obviously, we're here to hear from you, so we do want to hear from you. We'll use the chat feature for questions. And go ahead and start posting the chat. Those, as soon as you have them, we will get to them. And our moderators are viewing those right now. So if you have any question as it relates to anything, just go ahead and throw it in the chat feature, and we'll get to it eventually. If you're on the phone, like our previous caller, you know, just wait for a time, and we will get back to sort of a discussion item. We'll have plenty of time for discussion and be able to answer questions as you will think of them. Just the other thing on housekeeping, please keep your microphone on mute to avoid some background noises and any feedback. With that, I'm happy you have taken the time to join us. Today you'll be hearing from the Lockmuir team who we've hired to perform this study. But first I will introduce Andy Dwyer, who is the Director of Mobility at the Greater Peoria Mass Transit District that operates CityLink. Andy is going to provide you with an overview of the project as well as the timeline of the project. So Andy, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Eric. First and foremost, as you can see, the map on your right, there are 3 well-defined areas. The area in green is the City Link and City Lift service area. That is a 5307 urbanized transit funded operation. The area that is in white on both sides of the river is considered rural. It'll also be called 5311 or referred to as County Link or We Care service areas. The area we're talking about is the area that is in gray. It's urbanized via the 2010 census, and it consists of locations such as Bartonville, Dunlap, Chillicothe, Marquette Heights, Creve Coeur, Morton, Washington. And that area is an effective no man's land for transit. We do provide some service on the Peoria side. That is via an intergovernmental agreement previously with some 5310, which is for individuals who are disabled. Then JARC and New Freedom funding that provided as sampling to provide transportation in those areas. As it currently stands, Greater Peoria Mass Transit in concert with County Link does provide service on a limited basis, Monday through Friday, roughly 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. The urbanized areas in Tazewell County don't have any sort of agreement in place, and therefore their passengers and residents truly do not have any public transit in those areas. And as a whole in the region, we're talking roughly 87,000 individuals. I believe that's roughly 1/3 of the population within the region. And lastly, our goal for this project is to investigate the level of need and demand, and then begin formulating strategies to implement these services in concert with state and local governments. If we can go to the next slide, please. This is our project schedule. As you can note, we have went through 4 major processes throughout this. We've met with a steering committee. We've had stakeholder input. And we're continuing the stakeholder input. That is the single most important facet of this project, is figuring out what our residents and what our constituents, the local politicians, what we need to see happen in the future in order to figure out how we're going to deliver and what we actually need to deliver as far as transportation services are in the gray area. Lastly, we do have a few more items to touch base. There's a funding analysis. We have to get through that to see where the potential funding is going to come from, and then we need to figure out which of those funding sources is going to be important, the most important. And then finally, we need to get together with our stakeholders once again and get our final deliverables to them, and then ensure that that is accurate as per their wants and needs through input and meetings such as this, and then again formulate a plan to move forward. With that, I'd like to take this time to introduce Katie Shackelford from Lockmuir. She's our project lead on this, and she has spent a lot of time and she has a lot of knowledge on what's going on in the region, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say.
As it is 2020, the rule is make sure you're not on mute when you start talking. So naturally, start on mute. So I just want to thank you, Andy, for handing it over to me, and for Eric for kicking us off today. The purpose of today's meeting, we're going to be reviewing some of our findings from the existing conditions report. We're going to assess the community needs as we've identified them so far. And then we want to turn to you guys and ask to gather some new information and support the information that we've already received so that we can create a solution that works for the region. So with that, I want to just go over a couple of things. Why does engagement matter? Why are we doing engagement in the project? So for us, it means a lot of things, but number one, increases the likelihood of this project success. For having citizens who participate in this process, it shows significant commitment to help making the solution happen. It creates more effective solutions. We draw on local knowledge to form a diverse group that creates solutions that are practical and effective for the region. It improves our citizens' knowledge and skills to provide problem solving. Our participants are learning about the issues in depth. The greater knowledge allows them to see the multiple sides of the problem, and citizens can then participate in the decision-making process. It empowers and integrates people from different backgrounds, so groups that feel ignored can gain greater control over their lives and the community they're in. When people from different areas in the community work together, they often find they have much more in common. It also helps us create a local network of community members who can work towards a solution. The more people who know what's going on and who are willing to work towards the goal, the more likely the community is going to be successful in reaching that goal. This also creates several opportunities for discussing concerns. Regular ongoing discussion allows us to express our concerns and address problems before they become big or out of control. And then finally, one of the things I love about community engagement is it helps us increase trust in the community and the organizations that we work with. Working together improves our communication and understanding of the problems that are facing the Peoria area. Knowing what government, community citizens, and leaders, as well as organizations can do, can reduce conflict in the future and help us achieve a goal together. So with that, we are going to start to tell you more about the gray area study and where we are at this time. I'm going to introduce our team really quickly. So for those of you who don't know my name, or who don't know me, my name is Katie Shackelford. I am our client manager and engagement specialist on this study. I actually started my career in Peoria and spent my first 5 years working and living in the Peoria area. I am getting some feedback from a phone, so I'm going to take a moment to mute when I find where that is coming from. I might just mute everybody to help us out here. If you happen to not be on mute, let me know. Okay, so like I said, my name is Katie Shackelford. I spent 5 years living and working in the Peoria area. I've now joined Lockmiller Group, which is it's a full-service civil engineering and planning firm. We serve the Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri area. I am now located out of my office in St. Louis. With me today is our two of my colleagues, Sharif and Michael, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'll let Sharif go next.
Sure. Thank you, Katie, and good evening, everyone. This is Sharifullah. I am working as a transit analyst for this particular project. I've been working in Central Illinois for more than 15 years, and especially in projects involving the state and also local municipalities and MPOs. And now let me introduce Mike Rovak. He is our technical project manager. Mike.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Grovak, and I'm the senior transit engineer for the Lockmiller Group. I've worked in public transit for 38 years, 13 of that for several major transit operating agencies, and then just about exactly a quarter century with Lockmiller Group. I've overseen a number of transit studies in smaller and medium-sized cities, and I'll be the one overseeing all of our analysis and reports.
Thank you all for that introduction. With that, we're going to jump into a review of our existing condition reports. So I'm going to let Michael take it off.
Thanks, Katie. And first, I just want to add that this existing conditions report is the first major draft document we produced. I'm going to give just a few highlights. It is posted as a draft document for your review and feedback on the Tri-County website. They have a transit page. You just go right there and you can click on it. It's quite detailed. Just to give you some of the highlights of it, again, the urbanized area, I think Andy did a very good job of describing it is approximately 1/3 of the population of the Tri-County urbanized area. It's a growing area in need of transportation solutions. First thing some of the major things we looked over, there are several major statewide and regional plans that we've summarize and describe their applicability in our existing conditions report. First of all, two statewide plans, a 2019 statewide long-range transportation plan, and then a 2018 statewide public transportation plan, as well as three major regional plans. One I just highlight is just recently the Tri-County issued its 2045 long-range transportation plan. Next slide. Now, this shows recent ridership trends in the rural area services, County Link, provided by Greater Peoria Mass Transit District, in WeCare and Tazewell and Wolford counties. And just as you notice this steady upward trends in ridership certainly illustrates the kind of potential there is in the gray area for transportation services. Both of these services, the County Link and the WeCare, roughly 12 hours a day, give or take, Monday through Fridays. Next slide. And again, as Andy already mentioned, this gray area has about 87,000 residents. This is based on the American Community Survey from 2018, so it's most recent information available, about a third of the urbanized area population within the region. And then next slide, please. Just some key indicators of the population makeup in the gray area. Several characteristics: income, owner-occupied housing, labor force participation, education attainment tends to run higher than the average in the urbanized area. And then the non-white zero vehicle household, poverty and disability status tend to run lower than in the urbanized area. With that, I'm going to ask Sharif now to take a couple of slides to discuss the demand analysis that we've done today to start to put some parameters about the level of need and potential ridership. Sharif?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So as Mike mentioned, that the gray area population is approximately 87,000, and it's approximately 1/3 of the Tri-County urbanized area. So we wanted to identify that how much transit demand is there in that gray area. So what we did is, if you please go to next slide, please. So we utilized 3 demand methodologies identified in this particular slide, and I'm going to talk briefly about those. So let me start with program demand. So program demand applies to limited demand response services. For example, such demand can include subscription trips for clients to a social service agency or medical service providers. And then the non-program demand, this methodology applies to demand response services and flexible route services open to any public, general public, and not associated with anything specific service or program. And lastly, the commuter demand. This is a sort of transit demand on a daily basis where majority of the riders typically repeat their routing and schedules. So for example, daily work trips is a good example of that. Next slide, please. So in our analysis, we estimated demand following 2 broader methodologies. So number 1 is from the Transit Cooperative Research Program. It's a federal highway funded project, and Illinois Department of Transportation, in their public transit plan of 2018, they also followed the same methodology. And the next one is from the National Center of Transit Research. It's mainly for the rural transit analysis based in North Dakota State University, and it is also funded by US DOT. So for the program demand, following the TCRP method, we identified approximately 83,000 annual ridership demand, which then converts to about 276 daily ridership demand. And for the non-program demand, following the two different methodologies, and as you can see that we were also able to put a fare value to identify the sensitivity of fare in transit ridership demand. And based on the analysis, the daily ridership demand ranges from 195 to 287. So if we take an average, that comes to 242 for non-program demand. So if we add the program and non-program demand together, we get approximately 518 daily transit ridership demand. So what it means? It means that if there is a transit service provided with reasonable level of service, we may expect transit riders close to 520 as regular users of the transit service. Next slide, please. So now to Katie.
Thank you. Okay, so in addition to evaluating the existing conditions and calculating the transit demand for the gray area, we did conduct a number of stakeholder interviews with public officials, transit and service providers, riders, community groups, and healthcare providers. We began these interviews by asking a set of questions to help us put the data that we've already determined, so what you've seen just before you, and the information that we've gathered into a context to make sure we understand how it's working in the region. Through this effort, we did gain valuable insight into the challenges that folks are facing and the potential opportunities that could address these challenges. We summarized these findings to share with you all here, but we'll also be asking you to provide your input on these challenges and opportunities a little later in the program. So first, let's look at the challenges. What we heard. Overall, our stakeholders identified a lack of transportation options for the elderly and disabled as the highest priority. As more people are choosing to age in place, this problem is becoming larger because a lot of people are living in this suburban area outside of the general Peoria, East Peoria, and Pekin city limits. But people have, many cited that the hours of operation for service that are available are too limited. Those that have doctor's appointments in the early morning or work hours that extend late into the day are not available or are not able to get to and from their trips. They also noted that many people had no options for transportation at all over the weekend. Some of our stakeholders talked about the challenges of meeting appointments due to rides not being available or having to work around booking schedules or waiting out in the snow for a ride they weren't sure when it was going to arrive. Many of our service providers commented that providing transit in this region is very expensive. The distance to and from locations makes it hard to find efficiencies. And in some cases, riders can be in the vehicle for up to an hour. As many people who are residents of the area know, it's one of the great things about the Peoria region is you can get just about anywhere in 15 minutes, except when you're using one of these transit providers, which can be a challenge. Without increasing funding for more vehicles, extending the hours, or providing better technology for trip planning, it is hard to provide services that everyone needs at a cost that is affordable. We also heard repeatedly that the challenges faced by the service area restrictions, and we'll illustrate those in more detail in just a moment, are certainly difficult. And I apologize if anyone hears my dog is starting to act up because we are on the phone. So it's very difficult to navigate this complex network of rules that each service has imposed based on their funding requirements or their service area restrictions, depending on where a person is located and where they're trying to travel. And then finally, most transit people in this region are really focused on healthcare and the required appointments. Recreation and social activities, including shopping or church visits, are really a low priority for most of these service providers, and options to get to these activities for people are very limited. So we wanted to illustrate for you the complex network of service provided in the region. We're in the process of developing this matrix. It's still in draft form, so please be gentle with us. We are still refining this. It's better understand the nuances of all the service provided throughout the gray area. So what you see, and for those who can see the screen, what we have is a spreadsheet essentially in front of us. Each service provider has been given a shade or color coding. So we have CityLink WeCare, County Lift, and City Lift, excuse me, CityLink, WeCare, City Lift, and County Link each has their own color shade and pattern in this matrix. So in order to use the matrix, we choose from a city in a row on the far right. So in this case, let's look at East Peoria. And then we want to look for the destination that you want to travel from East Peoria and see if there's service available. So if you're in East Peoria and trying to travel to Germantown Hills, you'll notice the box is blank. There's no color inside the box. No service is provided. If you don't have a car, you cannot use transit to travel to this location. Are you in Pekin and you want to go to work in Morton? There is no transit service available to fill this need. If you're in Washington and trying to reach a doctor's appointment in Peoria, same situation, there is no luck. These are the challenges that our neighbors are facing in the gray area. Thankfully, our stakeholders also helped us to explore potential opportunities to solve this complex problem. These opportunities included improving interagency coordination, extending the hours of operation and days of service, increasing the number of transit vehicles on the road to provide more people with opportunities to have a ride, providing more flexible payment options to allow people to purchase their fares online or through an app, and increasing access to information about the various options that are available, and providing real-time rider information so that people know when their rides are arriving. This, coupled with providing better scheduling tools, can help gain some efficiencies and reduce the cost of providing trips. Now, we want to turn these questions around to you. So, from what you've heard today, what do you think is the most important issue this study should address? Looks like we need to add a new member to the meeting. So either using the link provided at the top or texting the phrase Catherine Shack 218 to 22333, you can respond to this question. The question is, what is the most important issue this study should address? The responses are A, lack of available transportation for elderly and disabled. B, inadequate hours of operation. C, unreliable service. D, high operating cost. E, the limited service area. Or F, poor access to work and social services. So we have approximately, looks like 17 people on the call with us right now. I'd like as many of you as possible to participate in this activity. We did have a great number at our lunchtime meeting. We had about 26 people in attendance. So we will be combining your results with those from the lunchtime meeting to create an average, or to determine which really is the biggest concern for the community. And also, if you have questions, or if you would like to include something that is not currently available on the list, let me know. You can add that to the chat box. What I'm going to do, actually, I have a timer that appears to be confused, so I'm going to turn it off. It's going to give us 1 minute on the clock to see where our votes land. And while we're doing this, I'll just check the chat box, see if we have any live questions.
I would like to vote that it's, I'm Christy Mitchell, and I would like to vote for A, that there needs to be more services for disability and older people.
All right, well, thank you. We will add that vote to the tally. It does appear right now that A is our leading vote. We may be having some people change their vote. It's a little unusual to see the votes going in reverse. However, it happens. So I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to submit your answers, and then we're going to move on to the next question. It does look like we've got a clear winner right now, the lack of available transportation for the elderly and disabled. So we will calculate that in with our lunchtime votes and get you the results on Tri-County's website. We do have a second question. And unfortunately, my computer has frozen on me with all our exciting voting taking place. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. And kick us off, set us up for our next question. So if you are in the middle of voting, now is the time to definitely stop. And what we'll do is launch the second question. You don't have to log in again. Using the same service we have, the next question should come up. And the question is, how should we address this challenge? So based on your results to the last question, your responses are A, extend hours of operation and days of operation. B, provide real-time travel information. C, improve coordination among providers. D, provide more payment options. And then E, increase more information about existing services. And I'm really excited to see these votes coming in live. Looks like our current lead is improving coordination among providers. Is it Cinda? Did you want to provide your response verbally?
I'm going to provide that we need to coordinate between providers, and actually that needs to be more available to participants, to providers, that they need to know that they might get this far with this provider and this far with another provider in those very difficult to reach areas.
Great, thank you for your feedback. We appreciate that. I'm going to give you all about another 30 seconds to submit your responses, and then we will, we're going to open it up to the next part of our program. I always love watching the responses come in live and see the votes changing on the screen. We are currently tied between improving coordination and increasing information about existing services. So I'll give you about 10 more seconds to send your final vote, and then we'll move to the next activity. All right. And for some reason, when I do this poll everywhere, it freezes my screen, but we will get through this together. So thank you guys for your feedback. We're going to talk really quickly about next steps and then get into the Q&A portion of our program. So thanks for bearing with me with this as we move around just a little bit. All right, next steps. The results are going to be incorporated, like I mentioned, into the study to help guide us through these next steps and the things that we'll be doing. We're going to be exploring the potential mobility solutions. So we're going to be looking at different services that can fill this need. We're also going to be looking at different funding options. So ways to pay for the services that we're identifying through these mobility solutions. We'll be meeting again with our steering committee to review our recommendations early in the spring, and then we'll have another public meeting to share with you the results of that later on in the spring. As you saw from the beginning timeline, we are anticipating wrapping up this project around May of 2021. Given the current conditions, we are likely looking at another virtual format for our engagement strategy, but we do want to meet the residents as best we can wherever they are. So we're going to provide you as much information as we can through Tri-County's website and provide you lots of opportunities to send us emails and feedback throughout the process. So I'm going to turn my camera back on. For those of you who are participating today, we do ask, if you're going to ask a question or if you want to answer a response, let's get our cameras up and operating so we can see everybody's beautiful faces. Are there any questions in the chat box? It looks like we do have a question from Sharon and John. And the question is, to what extent does the long-term transportation plan incorporate autonomous transportation? I think that would be a question for Eric or Hannah.
Yeah, I'll take it. So we have several different chapters in there. The one that I thought was most relevant is the mobility and connectivity chapter, and in that one there are a couple different objective and action items. We want to encourage new mobility vehicles and programs that will prioritize accessibility, and we support the development of shared mobility options. So a lot of this can lend itself to either autonomous or some kind of smarter mobility, but it's definitely not maybe the core feature of this plan. And we also have a dedicated regional smart mobility strategy. I believe that is also on our website. You can go to the documents page, and I think you look up, it's Tri-County Emerging Mobility Strategy. That was kind of a separate standalone, but yet regional plan.
Great, thank you, Hannah, for answering that. Any other questions that our audience wants to ask at this time? We've got plenty of time to have some discussion. Well, while we're all here, one thing I would ask is, for those who are in attendance, curious about what made you want to come to today's meeting? What did you want to learn more about? If you could unmute yourself and share with us, we'd be happy to hear that from you. If I can maybe volunteer Jim Bremer.
Well, let me unmute myself. So there we go. You know, I was good. It was good to see what you've uncovered so far, as you know, some of the issues, you know, the problems with, you know, service on weekends or limited service and limited options. I really think it's confusing. In Washington, we have 3 different providers, you know, and it all depends on where you live, which one you get. And it's really hard for, I think, the public to understand those, you know, those cutoff points, and how do they get a hold of somebody to ride with WeCare or with City Lift or with whoever, you know, and Agency on Aging. We're trying to do that through a brochure. We're going to put some stuff out in some of the local newspapers. We're trying to get a map out to as many people as possible. And it was a map that was created by Tri-County Planning, and with cooperation with Andy and others who, you know, laid out all these different layers on there to help us put this map out. And I just think it's really hard for the general public to figure out who they can call for a ride. If they want to get local here, we're trying this local free ride. But if they want to get from here to Peoria for a doctor, we just had this, for instance, let me just give you this one example. A woman had called us and said, my father is in a wheelchair full-time, and he uses City Lift to get to his doctor appointments in Peoria, but City Lift won't take him to his appointments in Washington because it's out of their area. And she called us and said, what are we going to do about that? And I said, well, where do you live? And she told me, and I looked at the big map, and I said, look, I said, you are in this urban area that is outside the reach of City Lift to bring you into town, but you can go ahead and get a hold of Agency on Aging and let them know your issue. And between her dad using the services to get to Peoria, he also is using the services of WeCare to get to his doctor in Washington. And so, you know, it does work, but you have to understand how it works. And I think that's the real issue, is people don't understand, you know, if they live here, then they can't go there. Or if they go there, then they can't go here. And it's all those funky little rules that make it hard for people to understand how it works the way it is now. I mean, obviously, the best thing is if we had unlimited funds and we could go ahead and just say, hey, City Lift, City Link, come on in and take our people wherever they have to go, or something like that. But we don't. So we have to work within our parameters and funding, and we're trying. But I think half of it is an education thing.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We appreciate you being here and all the work you do in Washington Township. Anybody else on the call want to share with us why what they were curious to learn more about today joining us, or if there was a specific question they maybe wanted us to address.
Katie, I just want to add on to what Jim was saying, is that it definitely is an education issue, but it's also, among the users of this, obviously, as the professionals, part of our job is to make it as easy to understand as possible, which even for somebody that's been in the business for 25 years, excuse me, it's hard to do. It's just a lot of stuff. So one of the things that we talked about earlier at the earlier meeting was public official awareness. And obviously Jim was called and he responded to the call and was able to help his constituents out. But obviously he's an elected official and he doesn't know everything. He's got to go through a learning process. But if we can make all of our elected officials sort of aware that this is an ongoing issue, that's not going to solve itself. It's going to in fact get worse as our people age in place and our population gets older and we expand beyond sort of the traditional city footprint where there is service. They need to understand this. So I would encourage everybody, that is just a citizen or a user of the transit service to go ahead and make those phone calls and let them know that this is an ongoing problem, an ongoing issue that we'd all like to solve. And we can, we don't need an unlimited pot of money to solve this. We do need better coordination. We do need a small amount of funding for sort of awareness issues, and we can manage it if we can't solve the whole thing.
Yes, great point, Eric, and thanks for bringing that up. It looks like in our chat box, and Sharon and John have really mastered the thumbs up. I'm very proud of. I'm happy to have them using their features. It looks like Casey Peterson is on the call with us, and he said he's the Director of Rural Outreach and Development at the Greater Peoria EDC. So it's nice to welcome you, Casey. I realize you're taking over. It seems Brent Baker has departed for new ventures, so we're happy to have you. Casey said he previously worked for McLean County Regional Planning and curious to learn how he can better connect our rural communities with public transportation options. So we are too. That's what we're working on here today, and happy to have you with us. We did have a couple of questions from earlier today that we'd be happy to reiterate, and I think have some discussion around. So a couple of things that we talked about when discussing the challenges for the region. One was how do we pay for solutions like this? And I think that's something that's on a lot of people's minds, and that's where we're heading with the project next. So wanted to talk about what has been, Hannah mentioned JARC and New Freedom, him and Andy both have mentioned JARC and New Freedom as what has been helping support some efforts in the Peoria County side of this in the past. Can you guys elaborate more on what those tools were for and why they don't exist anymore?
Sure, I'll try to tackle it first, and then Andy, let me know if I missed something. But for probably a good 5 years or so, the region itself had received money that assisted funding transportation for better job access, as well as improved mobility for seniors and people with disabilities. And as of, I want to say, late 2018, those funds finally ran out at the federal level. They decided to switch around how they were distributed, and they combined them with other programs. But basically, it made it a little bit harder to provide those same kinds of services. Currently, Andy and his team are still providing that kind of service on the Peoria side. But Tazewell and Woodford have not had such luck. So really, we looked at trying to make sure that this study helps bring new ideas to solving the problem caused by that lack of funding now.
Hannah, that's a fantastic point. In the Peoria County side, urbanized area, we found that having a bus travel from Elmwood down through Glassford and ultimately through Bartonville and all the way up to, let's say, Epic or CWTC in Peoria, that it makes a lot of sense to provide those rides along that way. We infused some additional funding in through an intergovernmental agreement, and effectively we're making the buck go farther by picking up those other individuals and infusing an additional revenue stream, whereas we had, we'll say, $700,000. Now you add another 150 or 200,000 on top of it, you can put more buses on the road. And that's what ultimately we're trying to do on this side. In addition, we do have residents within the Peoria, the city of Peoria, that reside in far north Peoria, North Knoxville, out by the new Schnooks and north of there, that are taxpayers into our district and weren't receiving any sort of service. So in order for us to continue to serve them and serve them properly, we worked with Peoria County at the time to implement this. And it just so happens that cities such as Bartonville, Dunlap, and also the vein going up on 29 to Chillicothe just became partly eligible because they are considered urbanized via the census. And it just makes a lot of sense if we're going to have a bus going right by there to pick those people up. Not only is it cost effective, it's showing that we're doing the best we can by dispensing the taxpayer dollar in the most reasonable manner, and throwing one or two extra people on a vehicle at a minimal cost made a whole lot of sense. And unfortunately, on the Tazewell side at this point, there are no agreements in place with the exception of our partners within the city of Pekin and then the East Peoria Mass Transit District that we're able to provide any services to.
Great, thank you both for your responses. Those were really helpful. I wanted to elaborate on something that Andy mentioned, that with these boundaries are determined by the census. And as we know, hopefully you all took your census. It is wrapping up right now. And so we are having a decennial census at this moment, and it will affect our urbanized area boundary possibly. One of the things that I would say that we've noticed as the population continues to disperse throughout the Peoria area, that boundary isn't getting smaller, it is actually expanding. So the population is becoming less centralized, which means more and more communities are going to be wrapped into this gray area that are going to be beyond the boundaries of those cities that are served. So as we anticipate moving into the future, this problem will probably become a problem for more and more areas of the region. So as we look towards the future demand, one of the questions we asked, is there really a demand for this? Our calculations show obviously that there's a number of people that can provide this service. And I think Andrew can provide a more accurate picture of what he saw when Peoria expanded to capture those people that are moving between the gray area and the city more often, that there is definitely a demand. And as the urbanized boundaries continue to change and grow, that we'll see more and more people pulled into this challenge. Friendly reminder, the chat box is always open. We do have about 15 minutes left for questions and answers today. Anything else from our audience that you would like to have a discussion about? Don't worry, guys, I'm always full of more questions. In case we have some airtime here, I'm curious. This one is for Michael. Michael, how does COVID affect this challenge? How is COVID, how do we anticipate COVID affecting transit demand into the future?
Well, like many other things, that is something that we can begin to see some trends emerging. And obviously safety, security in transit and transportation is something very important. And, CityLink, like, transit systems everywhere are having to really add a lot of maintenance effort, not only to keep vehicles operating properly, but to just really, maintain them in, a germ-free type of environment. Frankly, I think one of the things that going forward it's going to be very important is for people to understand. It'll be like maybe if I could make an analogy, you go back to about 10 years ago, the Great Recession. It still affects how maybe people regard, say, their personal finances in the same way. Not right away, not next week. This too will pass, but after it passes, just kind of, you might almost say, biological security is going to be a big issue. So I think it really heightens the kind of questions people are going to be asking, and just generally, maybe Andrew might speak a little more to this. I think transit systems around the country are really stepping up very, very nicely. Now there's funding implications related to that. You have it can't even relate to how many customers you can serve on a vehicle, but so that's I would say generally how it is that people appreciate the need for transit, but they're also see the transit agencies are really stepping up to do their part.
Yeah, I will add one thing we heard from our steering committee and from our stakeholder interviews was the requirements of COVID for social distancing and cleanliness have really maxed out the capacity of the vehicles at a much lower level than they previously were operating. So fewer people have the option to ride the bus, fewer people can get on the bus. I believe one of the things I heard was about 30% capacity. So even though we were serving a larger group of people, now 1/3 of those people have the opportunity to take a ride. And so what we're seeing is that the need for transit assistance hasn't gone away, but the ability to provide that assistance has been stretched to its limits.
Katie, you're correct. This is Andy again. We were on our service, we're expecting capacity concerns somewhere around 35%. Our ridership is still down. On a normal day, it's around 700 to 800. We're in the 400s right now. Luckily, we've been working with some of our partners to mitigate that. Our CWTC, Epic, Senior World, and some of our dialysis centers. We're working to put like group homes or like individuals that are traveling and being within the same facility at like times to help maximize our availability. If you reside within the same home and there's 7 or 8 people that reside and they're going to the same location, it makes most sense that we can put more people on there. So we appreciate our partners. We have weekly meetings with them about things that are ever changing in the area, so we can maximize the level of service that we're providing not only to them, but also the regular public. And you're exactly correct with the capacity concerns. It's very difficult. We do have some individuals who have some health issues, and they feel much more comfortable riding alone. And we do everything we can to try not to put many people on those vehicles. Our capacity on a 14-passenger vehicle is 3 to 4 at this point. So the cleaning and getting creative, we've stretched out some of our routes that actually go later into the afternoon. Now staying on the road past 6 o'clock to assist with some of our dialysis centers that are providing a little bit longer period between and intermingling between their morning group and their afternoon group. So you could I guess play the hand that's dealt to you is all I can really say. It's ever changing. It really is. They went from 14 days of contact quarantine down to 10 recently. Actually just got an email while we were on this call about the CDC updating their guidelines. And so we're doing the best we can, and it's very fluid, and we're all learning at this point.
Thank you. I appreciate you providing this feedback, and I hope everybody sees this as an opportunity to learn more and ask questions. As you've seen on the screen, you can, if you're not comfortable speaking up or making a statement right now, or you don't want to use the chat box, you can always contact us directly. For those who can't see the screen, we have questions that can be directed to Rima over at Tri-County Regional Planning. For those who can see, she just waved. And her email is rabiakar@tricountyrpc.org. You can also direct questions to me. My email is kshackelford@lockgroup.com. More resources are available on Tri-County's website for those that want to follow the progress of this process. We will be planning to present to you some solutions in the spring of 2021, like we mentioned earlier. So be on the lookout for that and more information. We'll do our best to get that information out to you as many ways as we can, including, if you may have noticed, Hannah was interviewed by Peoria Public Radio. So using all the resources we have available to make that happen. We have about 5 minutes left on the call, so we want to make sure if there's any other questions you have or concerns, things that you're interested in learning more about, now is the time to speak up. It looks like Kelly Martin is clapping. Thank you for those claps. Anything you want to add, Kelly?
Is there any way we can combine some of this is Chris Mitchell, and I'm wondering if we can combine the education and the community coordination of services between providers, because a lot of people don't know how to ask for help. And for example, someone was telling me that they were going to get a wheelchair, and I said, make sure that it is made so you can use CityLift. And I don't know how easily all the different providers know that you have to have certain specs to use a fixed route or a lifted vehicle. And that is one of the educational pieces that would need to be discussed among providers and riders. I think at one time there was only one person that CityLift could not transport because of the size of their chair, but nobody talks about it very openly.
No, that's great feedback. Thanks for sharing. For those who are not aware, we are taking notes of today's meeting and we are recording it. So it will be posted on Tri-County's website for you to share with your friends, share with your elected officials. There's going to be a recording from the lunchtime session, which is the exact same presentation you saw today. Slightly different questions came at the end of that meeting. And then we will be preparing a memo of our findings, and that's going to go into the report, and it'll be available for you to review. So we're now at 2 minutes to go. I'm going to hand it back over to Eric for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you all for the great discussion that we've had tonight. Yeah, it's not often that you know, you get to influence a study that is so impactful to a region, but that's where we are with this. Like Andy mentioned in the time frame, we're about halfway done with the study, so there's still a lot of opportunity for you, either as a user or as an interested citizen or a provider, to sort of influence the outcome of the study. So I would, you know, encourage you to get a hold of our team or get involved somehow to be more involved. And you know, obviously we're as happy to have as many volunteers as we can throughout the process. Katie, or somebody also mentioned the Human Services Transportation Planning Group. That's sort of our outlet to providers. And I think there's ample opportunity for people to not only attend those meetings, but they're probably looking for volunteers to be appointed to that committee. So if you have a passion and desire to sort of influence sort of how we do transit in the region, especially as it relates to the paratransit and for disabled and elderly, I would encourage you to get a hold of Rima, who's currently the HSTP coordinator, and she can let you know how to plug into that group. But otherwise, thank you for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. And obviously, the results of the study will be forwarded to you. If not, they'll certainly be posted on the Tri-County website, which we've mentioned a number of times. So with that, I will thank you all and wish everyone a good night.
Thank you.